Hello and welcome to this edition of Let's Talk About It with my guest today, Mr. Jesse Cooper. Jesse, welcome to the show.
Hey, welcome. Thank you, Ferrell. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Right.
I want my audience to get a little bit more familiar with you. Jesse is I was going to say a tennis pro, but you corrected me a minute ago.
Okay, well, thank you. Yes, I like to say a professional tennis coach. I used to tour, so coach on the ATP and WTA tour with male and female tour, professional tennis tour.
Okay.
So that's why a teaching pro is generally someone that's just on the service side.
Okay.
They work for a country club, so that's why. But, and I'm more than just a coach. I think coach that's a title, something I do.
Okay.
I like to consider myself a chief people former.
A chief people former.
Yeah. So like a farmer, I seed people and grow pros.
Is that right?
Yes. I help them grow through the learning grove of life is what I like to say. So,
That is fantastic. So what actually got you into tennis?
wow, if you want to take me back there. Here's the deal. Here's the deal. I've been playing tennis since I was 10 years old.
Okay.
I've been fortunate and blessed to have a lot of people, starting at McGregor Park. Let me just back up and say the history of that. McGregor Park Tennis Center, now known as Home of Ford Tennis Center.
Okay.
The famous location where Zena Garrison and Lord McNeil got their start.
Right.
Under the coach, several coaches, but one in particular, John Wilkerson, who eventually became a mentor of mine and coach. And helped me kind of hone in my skills, if you would.
Okay.
John was more of a mentor than just a coach. I call him a life coach, if you would.
Okay.
And that gave me a lot of confidence to deal with things. Leonardo Johns was a fellow who was kind of held the fort down, if you would. He was the head pro out there, the manager.
Okay, over at McGregor.
At McGregor Park.
Okay.
Yes. So, Leo, when you think about it, it's funny where I am today. I'm in late 30s, and but as a kid, Leo just pretty much gave me the opportunity to be whatever I wanted to be, and every adult, male and female out there, was some type of mom or aunt to me. I'm fortunate enough to say there are a lot of free programs out there, but there's nothing like people that just open up their hearts and say, hey, you know what, I don't have a program, but I'll let you come out here for free.
Wow.
And just open his arms, and he helped out. I mean, the facility was mine. So I really am if you want to say, a champion of grace and a child of the park.
That is fantastic. And it's so good when people give you the opportunity to do something that you didn't think you would be able to do.
Yes.
Because not only does it enrich and bless your life, but it enriches and blesses theirs too. And I always say each one reach one.
Yes.
If you're able to be a success, or you're able to create something, and you're able to bring something else or someone else in, then it's going to bless them, and they can go down and do the exact same thing. And so the blessings will continue to flow, which is what the purpose of life is.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's scalable. So I'm going to move forward, advance the story a little bit. After playing junior tennis, I used to sit under John Wilkerson all the time and listen and say, I would hear him say things like, create a positive, impact on other people. And so all of a sudden, that was in me. It's amazing what we eat, what we digest, what we're fed, we
become.
We become. Yeah. It's part of the destiny, and I think that God had him in my life for a reason. So we were very grounded. Of course, my mother and father were just good people. My grandmother was the center of our life, so to speak, in the household.
Okay.
So she helped champion a lot of the beliefs, and Mom just from a distance kind of sewed some things in there. She was the drill sergeant, if you would. I love you, Mom. But I had in me to be and I wrote this down, I remember writing it in high school, to be some version of nonprofit in giving to people. What I want to do in my 5-10-year plan. I want to be a professional tennis coach. I never wanted to be a player. Never wanted to be a player, no. While John had worked with he had 2 players, top 10 players in the world at the same time. Amazing.
Okay. Now, I guess that was Lori McNeil.
Lori McNeil and Zena Garrison, yeah.
Okay.
And so I never had a heart to do that. I always wanted, because he really never told me exactly how to go out on a tour. People would see me and say, Jesse, you playing professional tennis? Are you going to do this? No, I was like, no, I didn't have it in my spirit to do it.
Okay.
And maybe God took that out of me and put something else in me, which was to go and help people. So moving forward, I decided that I would just champion other people's gifts and their talents and say, hey, you know what, you have a desire, a heart for this? Come on, let me take that and let you build on it. And from there, I started right out of high school a nonprofit
Really?
501c3, Section 509A. And we just use it to create an excuse-free opportunity.
Right out of high school.
Out of high school.
So that, it sounds
with
to me
my
like you
money.
you know, and that's great though. And a lot of great things start with small beginnings. But I think it's really interesting that you actually started right after high school because not many of us were that focused right after high school to start working on our career.
Tell me about it. You know, people used to tell me I was like an old soul or had an old man's mindset, but I was like, no, I don't know what that is, so I'm not going to claim it.
Right,
but
right.
what I'll do is, what happened was many of my friends were not the kids in high school that I hung around. I went to school, left school, I went around leadership. I went around visionary people of vision, and that's what happened. And so all these people who had lived, just fortunately, they were good people. Nobody tried harming me, taking advantage of me, anything like that. So I was blessed, or should I say seeded, with something that was healthy. And it wasn't normal, but it was healthy. And then it turned out it was good for me. And so I thank all the people out there that that are still around, some today, who served as great mentors for me. Carol Middleton and the rest of them, who's the late Carol Middleton. So where I am today, let's jump forward. One day I woke up with this idea. I had a young man that I was coaching. I said, do you want to play professional tennis? He goes, yes. And all of a sudden, I was like, I said, okay, I'm going to take you on the tour. This guy was like 9, 8 years old, and out of nowhere, I just had it in my spirit. It was a conviction.
Right.
Okay, and while I have a creative side of me, this was leaning on the conviction side of me. And I said, I'm going to take you there. You're going to do it. Now, let me be honest. Let's context this. I had never played on the tour. I was a good tennis player, but I didn't know anything about coaching. He was probably my second student.
So that was almost like a faking it until you make it kind of thing going on.
You know what? Then I would say that today, it's led by the Spirit rather than, you see what I mean?
As you reflect backwards.
Yeah, as I reflect. Yeah, now that I realize, I was like, wow, something was in charge of that. Because in my own mindset, if I would have been thinking, a conscious person, like today I don't ride skateboards. As a child, I did. I'm not crazy.
That certain,
certain things you don't do. So now, if I were to today start up something like that, I wouldn't have the boldness in me to do
Things
that.
Things change. I want to get back to the little kid. What happened with him?
Okay, he started off. Let's fast forward. Actually, I'm gonna slow down a little bit. This kid, I don't know, Carl Poston, agent, a lot of other big-time people that you can think of that's out there. And Carl Poston was one of Sports Illustrated's top dogs. Okay?
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if you just want to context him for a second, there were people out of the woodworks that came around after he got started. If you want to ask me, am I good? Well, he got to play next to Pete Sampras, Chris Evert, everybody you can think of. The cool part about it was when he was 14, almost 15, he debuted in his first professional tennis tournament. Okay. This pro tournament, the key of this pro tournament was I happened to be the Don King of the tournament. Okay. For some crazy reason,
King, huh?
the Don King of the tournament. For some reason, I decided I would jump into professional tennis tournaments. I called. Somehow got the rights, the license, and didn't know at the time how tough it was. Again, saying yes to something, and you just go with it. It wasn't blind faith; it was bold faith. And out of nowhere, I raised about $30,000 just to put the tournament on. USTA had kind of backed it, the United States Tennis Association. And before I had a license, and I didn't know it, but someone told me and said, "You're the first African American. You're also the youngest person to ever do it." I said, well, I know I'm the youngest and got to be the first at something because I'm knocking on doors and people are like, you in tennis?
Right.
A black guy?
Which is really unusual, and it's rare that you see a black guy in tennis. Of course, Arthur Ashe was one of our biggest African-American tennis players. We're going to be back in just a moment with more of Let's Talk About It with my wonderful guest, Mr. Jesse Cooper. Be right back. Hello, and welcome back to this edition of Let's Talk About It with my guest today, Mr. Jesse Cooper. Welcome back to the show, Jesse.
Thank you. Let's go back at it.
Let's go back at it. You know, one of the things I want to talk about, and after I read your bio, of course, I learned that you're a motivational speaker as well.
They call it that, motivational speaking, or I call it, I hope to inspire others. There's a saying where motivation is internal and inspiration is external. So I try to look at it that way, and when people tell me about motivating, I stay away from it because I tell them what I call is an actionable talk, because I like people to take actionable steps when I'm done. That's what empowerment is for me.
And you're totally correct. Because a lot of times you go to a seminar or an event that you're supposed to be motivated from or by, and you'll walk away and you won't even put any of those things into action.
That's right.
But you become successful when you start to put these things into action.
That's right.
But otherwise, what was the purpose?
That's right. And so for me, going, whether it's a church, whether it's a nonprofit organization, or just keynote speaking, it really doesn't matter. I like to empower people. And I tell people that most people give you how to do something. A lot of people even tell you what to do. But very few people lead you with the key ingredient. I say this is the seed of why, which means why you do something is more important than everything else that you're going to learn. So, I mean, we can learn process, but purpose is what it's all about.
So give me a little bit of the why as an example.
A why guy. If I teach you how to open an umbrella, how to use an umbrella, what an umbrella is, you might walk around all day with this umbrella, but if I don't give you the ingredient of why to do that,
right?
Why determines when you're going to do it. Why determines in what season you're going to do it. So there are a lot of people that get information. Let's say you go to a motivational speaking conference or something like that, and you feel good. You leave out of there, and they've pumped you up with everything that, you know, from here in the kitchen sink. And it's not a blueprint for self-development. It's more of, this is just some stuff that's out there like on Google, and you can go out there and you can feel good about it, but why should I do it? So why speaks to the relevance of where you are. Why also deals with circumstances, where you understand your position more than your circumstance. And you can see things thereafter as a circumstance rather than just, you know, and say, hey, this is circumstance. Not, this is who I am. This is more something I'm just going through. And it's going to pass and I'm going, or, you know what I mean?
Right.
So that's where I'm going with it. So anyway.
So what inspired you to become a motivational speaker?
I don't know that I became it as much as God tapped me on the shoulder and said, hey, you're going to go and talk to my people.
Is that right?
And that's kind of what happened. And you know what? You're not going to make a nonprofit out of it. You're not going to make a business out of it. You're just going to go and be the Johnny Appleseed of good words and the gospel in a way where it's relevant and people can get it. So here's what happened one day. I woke up. I'm in a coffee house. I'm sitting there and I'm typing. I'm working my butt off. And all of a sudden something hit me and came over my spirit and said, Jesse, let all that stuff go, and all the drama will go with it. Here's where I led up to. I'm going to jump to it because we don't have that much time to give a whole book on this thing. I ended up saying this to myself, and this is what I heard. Get out of the service side and jump to the servant side. So everything that I was doing in marketing, and this can be a conversation about marketing if you want to talk about some of the accomplishments, but I was working with some of the biggest names on the planet at that time.
Is that right?
But you end up chasing people for money. You end up getting the 4 a.m. phone call, and it's not marketing like what people think, like promo stuff and that kind of thing. This is like real analytical numbers and things like that. Out of this, if you saw 60 Minutes with Vince Young, dealing with Scott Pelley. So you're dealing with some of the bigger names, in the world, top tier media, all the way to the Donald Trumps and things like that.
Okay.
So one day I woke up and I was like, you know what? I would rather empower a Vince Young and help him for the long run rather than just give him something for the here and now.
Right.
And so in marketing it's tough though, because sometimes people have an eat what you kill mentality. So you're not successful unless you're bringing home some kind of bread for them to split, and you have a take on that.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that wasn't my business. I never saw myself as that. I was the guy that liked to help people and say, here, let me help you do this, and let me do this, and let me structure this for you so that you can have something. This is capital. We're going to invest and build. And I learned something. Ferrell, a lot of people don't like the development part of when you have to break ground. Because when I come to you and I have to say, here, I need you to be more transparent. Hey, we're going to have to do some gunk scraping and take some things off a little bit in order for us to grow forward. We're going to have to do what feels like we're going backwards. But my vision is I'm building a tall skyscraper in people's life. And I see everyone as you have the potential, the ability to be as big and go as far as you want to go. And so what happens is when you start building a skyscraper, you have to lay foundation. When you lay foundation, you first go down and it feels like you're going backwards.
Right.
So from there, we dig down, but we're putting pillars in the ground so that we can go. And from there, we just layer, and go. And each floor may have a little something different on it, but it's all a part of that journey as we walk the learning grove of life.
I like that. I like that, the perception that you have. And I'm actually going to probably steal that from you in my next opportunity to do a little motivational speaking myself. I like that.
It didn't come from me, I promise you. I like making money. Glory to God, I like making money. So, and he was like, and now let me share this as a testament, because I just said I like making money. The funny thing is, when I gave up all of this stuff where man had it worked out for me, most people thought I was crazy, even my mama. All of a sudden, people started coming and giving stuff and saying, hey, I was fed so much out of that. I love that so much. Is there something that, can I pay you for that? Can I do this for you? And you know that part, if you guys are, Bible scholars or even know a little bit of this, I'm sure you've heard this, pressed down, shaking together, running over. Well, it was coming all over, and I was like, what? Just in the form of donations. Just giving.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, you hear about websites where people give stuff. People were giving. But that's blessed to be a blessing, and I wasn't receiving anything that I did not need, but it was running over, so it was a way of using it, and when I got it, I gave it back, and yeah, so anyway, that's the kind of the yucky side to me when we started talking about money. So what I like to do is just focus on how are people benefiting from it. What are we doing today?
And that's important, because you don't want to do anything that you're not benefiting from. The whole purpose of doing anything that we do is to have some type of benefit. Otherwise, we're just spinning our wheels. I think it's important that you're sowing seeds the way that you're sowing seeds, that you're giving the way that you give. Because all this comes back to you, and it comes back in you in the form of good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. That's a prime example of it. So I certainly wish you tons of success in what you continue to do. Now, you said you've worked with several different athletes like Vince Young, and who are some of the other ones that you've worked with?
Wow. Well, through Perfect Jumper, I was fortunate enough to work on an endorsement opportunity and do endorsements with Steve Nash, Carmelo Anthony, J.J. Redick, Bobby Knight, Tubby Smith. These are some coaches and some professional players. And so we shot national. I developed along with my little team of people. I say team. I don't like to say employees, but my team of fellas that helped me develop this. And of course, there's always a visionary leader and things like that. So that was more my role, executive producer. And so I said, you know what? Let's develop a cool campaign that will just body rock, shake everybody, and get them excited. And so perfectjumper.com is the website, and Perfect Jumper is the product name. I was given that opportunity by a good friend who, not just business or an investor and people that sow into you, but I consider him like a big brother, Quentin Coriat, and just an awesome person. Quentin trusted me enough to trust my vision and allow me to get in and help, and we worked together on some. The way we worked together, I think, is why it was successful. And so we had a lot of good synergy there. So that's one of the things, and to trust me to be able to go and talk to all these people and represent his name, because Quentin was a former professional football player. If you Google him, I'm sure most people would know his name. Second pick, first round draft. So the marketing for me was more about at one point dealing with high end to make high impact. Then I said, let me get what people consider low end, which means work with everyone, civilians, and help them develop their business. I'm tired of hearing about people failing. I only want to hear about people growing. It's okay if you struggle a little bit to grow. It's okay if you hurt a little bit in the sandpaper kind of thing. We get that. But I woke up and said, this is what marketing would be for me.
And it only makes you better when you go through those experiences, so you won't have to keep going through them over and over again. We're going to come back in just a moment with more of Let's Talk About It. You guys want to stick around.
Looking forward.
Hello and welcome back to this edition of Let's Talk About It with my guest today, Mr. Jesse Cooper. Jesse, welcome back.
Thank you for having me. Again, segment 3 for this.
There you go. One of the things I wanted to ask you, because you are involved in the realm of athleticism with athletes and things of that nature, why do you think there's such a huge influx of athletes who have acquired wealth, but they no longer have it? What is the problem with that?
Wow, most people think it's about financial planning. They think it's about you need better advisors or better attorneys and things like that. That's not the problem.
That's not the problem?
Not the problem at all. Let me tell you, a train wreck with a speeding bullet is a man who acquires much but has an unhealthy self-image of himself. If you don't have the proper perspective of who you are and grounded before you get something, give a fool an air balloon where he think he can go somewhere, and he'll wind up going up somewhere he has no business going and tearing some stuff up. Let me tell you. So now let's talk. What does that really mean? You say, okay, Jesse, that sounds cute. Here's what that means. Take your athletes like the Vince Youngs and anyone else.
I'm sorry, who did you say?
Vince Young.
Vince Young.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm going to talk about a learning experience rather than a Vince Young experience. But let's just look at that as an example. He's a guy that was not necessarily advised poorly as much as he sought out what was already in his heart. Okay? And when you enable someone with that kind of money with a contract, NFL, I'm just going to say some things. I'm not going to put them in a chronological order. Y'all just bear with me for a second.
We're going to bear with you for a second.
Okay. NFL has this contract where most athletes sign with an agent, and they put themselves in a vertical agreement where they give their marketing rights, they give the regular agent rights, and they go supposedly negotiate things in the draft. That's great, but you can probably get a consultant to help you with that, rather than making that person your agent. Because most people who are not that educated, that inherit the opportunity and they have to have an agent, they jump in there. There are some great agents out there who mean well and understand an aspect of representation for a business. But these people have never championed or worked in a way where they've championed high revenue or high success in big brands and big corporations. So now all of a sudden you've signed with this fella and he's in charge of your marketing dollars. Most athletes can make more money off the field over time than they can on the field. That's just the reality of it.
Absolutely, especially once you've built your name up
and you have a big
reputation.
name. Yeah, when you retire from sports, let's say you're there for 10 years, but you can champion a brand for 20, 25 years.
And those are the ones that are successful. When you look at your Shaquille's, you look at your who's some of the other examples, but Shaquille's one of the biggest examples.
Yeah,
and being
LeBron James, a current player who's still doing well now, but who's setting himself up to do really, really well. I don't want to name names. But what I will do is just give you some scenarios of what I mean by this. I was fortunate enough to work with Major Adams and Vince Young together. Major was the vertical part. He was a sports agent. That's the on-field stuff. I did the horizontal part of it. So that's when you negotiate contracts and anything off the field and or things that may impact the field like PR and things like that. So I was hoping to be the guy that dealt more with that, but eventually I was just the guy who put out fires. And I had more phone calls from them rather than other people being interested. I was getting phone calls saying, we're in trouble, we're in trouble. So I'm more of a crisis manager.
Which is not unusual with a lot of athletes, because a lot of times they'll get in trouble. And a lot of times just the money gets them in trouble.
Money, but it's more, it's also that craving. Go ahead.
It's a craving also, but it's money, and it's also a mindset.
A mindset, going from,
and so much is started in the mind. And in fact, it's all in the mind. From top to bottom, it's in the mind. A lot of times what's in our mind is projected by the things that we do and the actions that you see that come forth once we've acquired this money. And then sometimes I think that some people can get a little bit too high up and think that they can do everything or whatever because they got a little bit of capital. But again, it starts with their mindset, and the mindset ultimately is what gets them in trouble.
Yes.
Or going to jail behind not paying taxes or things of this nature. And you look at these guys, you're like, they got all this money and all. Why are they going to jail for tax evasion or for it? I don't always get it. But the mind is where so much of that starts.
I will say that then their actions are a product of really what's been on the inside. Can we fault them for that? It's more out of being conditioned rather than necessarily a choice. Most people think they're in charge of a lot of stuff and they don't realize how things just work in life. So you put a little gas, alcohol on something that's already burning a little bit and it's dry wood sitting around, it's just going to blow up. I don't think that what's happening with Vince is necessarily a bad thing. It's okay for people to make money and lose money. It's okay and we have to sometimes take a step back.
To go forward.
We look at even the Vince situation and we criticize a lot of people and say, hey, he didn't have this and he didn't have that. The reality is that man made like 50, 60, some $80 million. He had a lot. And he had a great roller coaster ride. And if he can go get a job, and I'm sure he still has a little bit of money, maybe he's broke in our understanding.
Exactly.
Man, he don't have this. But the truth is, he probably has $1 million. Heck, if he had $500,000, he's still more than the average bear.
Absolutely.
Okay?
But you know what? A misconception that a lot of people have also, as it relates to athletes and money, when you hear somebody who just signed a $1.2 billion whatever, they don't know that they're not getting all of that money.
Yeah.
And that's what they're thinking.
Yeah.
You know, by the time it's all said and done, you might get 3/4 of it or less than that in a lot of cases. But of course, when we look at it, we think, oh, well, you got to, no, you don't understand everything that goes behind this. You don't understand all the agents that got to be paid. You don't understand all the endorsements that got to be taken care of. You don't understand everything. There's so much more than just that bottom line dollar. Now, you're doing something that's going to be a blessing to a lot of people.
I am, but before I jump into that, I'm gonna end on your thing. I want to just finish this little part that says, sometimes we focus so much on the process of things. The agent business, NFL business, I don't care what it is. It's like the home business for real estate. We're creating these processes where we bring in all these negative, unhealthy mechanisms that cause a huge problem later on in life. Just a little bit, inch this way, inch that way, and we get off track. I believe that the Vinces and the other people in the world, there needs to be some period where we just have a quiet period and say, how can we rebirth and rebrand this a little bit different? When and where is the paradigm shift going to take place and happen so that we can look at a healthier, not normal, but healthy? A crazy person defines, normality as healthy. Most people try to do that. They say, you're not normal. Well, what is normal? Is normal healthy? Maybe normal deals with propensity.
Well, normal is relative.
Yes, exactly. And so, but we want to go with what the norm is. So I want to back out of the norm and let's just look at this and say, you and I can do it. And we just run the whole world. And we'll say, is this healthy or is this unhealthy? You understand where I'm coming from? And make decisions based on that. Where's it going? Not, is it doing what the other people had? Because you don't know what they gave up along the way to get there.
Absolutely.
And so I just want to say that and throw that in. Maybe this makes sense to talk about where I'm going now, what I'm doing today. The festival, Jesse Fest, is a giving festival. Sounds crazy.
A giving festival.
A giving festival. I wanted to create an opportunity to have a space where people came out and simply we would just see them and love on them and see what would happen. People start internet businesses, platforms all day like Facebook, and you do it, you get a mass amount of people on it, and then you figure out a way later to monetize them. You figure out a way later to say, what can we do with this? Well, we can have a conversation after we get everybody in the room. And so I wanted to bring people to, in this case, August 8th through the 11th, to McGregor Park and to Jesse Fest. And it's a cool giving festival for cool people. We're going to have probably the most fun on the planet, I think. Where there's tennis tournaments, lacrosse showcase, it's free for people to participate. I have a Sunday gospel brunch that we're doing.
Wow.
With Billy Dorsey is going to lead that one. So we're talking about high-end good food. On Saturday, we're grilling and cooking, and people will go there. I want it to look like a farmer's market and just seed people and just let them eat and enjoy themselves. And I think once you get, family, when you get around the table, you can start hearing some things and learning some things.
Right.
That table is that park, is that platform.
And that's what it's all about, hearing things, learning things, and gaining something from whatever that experience was.
Yes.
And you're the man that's making that happen.
Me and a couple of lot of great volunteers.
That's fantastic.
Jesse, by the way, it wasn't Jesse Fest. I didn't choose that name. By the way, in the Bible, Jesse means gift from God. It means God exists. Okay? So the gift, Jesse Fest, was a gift. That's why we call it a giving festival.
Fantastic. All right. I hope you guys were inspired by Mr. Jesse Cooper as much as I was. And until next time, we'll see you on Let's Talk About It. For more information, you can reach us at Let's Talk About It 12tv@gmail.com. That's Let's Talk About It 12tv@gmail.com. You can also get information on Jesse. Thanks.